demolition SORF order came through on a Tuesday, and by Wednesday morning the ridge was empty. That was how it always went. The relocation teams moved fast once the paperwork cleared. Faster than people could grieve what they were leaving, faster than children could understand why they were being told to stop playing and come inside and bring only what they could carry. I had watched it happen on 4 other settlements before this one, and I had told myself each time that it was orderly, that it was necessary, that the land use permits and the agricultural surveys and the colonial expansion timetables were simply the shape of the world I worked in. I was a site assessor. My job was to walk the ground before the heavy equipment arrived and confirm there was nothing left to catalog. I had been doing this work for 11 years. I want to say I noticed something the moment I stepped onto the ridge that morning. I want to say the silence told me. But the honest truth is I was thinking about my survey form and the 2-hour drive back to the depot, and I almost missed her entirely. She was behind the last standing wall of the oldest building on the site. I nearly walked past. What stopped me was not a sound. She made no sound at all, but a shape. A small curve of shadow that did not match the angles of the rubble around it. I stopped, and I turned, and she was there. She looked back at me without flinching. That was the first thing I understood about her. She was not hiding anymore. Whatever she had been doing in the hours since the settlement cleared out, she had used them to decide something. She had decided to stay, and she had decided to stop hiding, and those were the only decisions available to her. And she had made both of them with a composure that embarrassed me. She was small. Her people ran slight. She was young even by their measure. A child in every proportion, in the length of her arms and the wideness of her eyes and the way her hands rested flat on the ground beside her, as if the earth was something she was holding onto deliberately. Skin was the dusty blue-gray of late evening, and her ears came to gentle points, and her eyes were so dark they caught the light the way still water does, holding a reflection of the sky overhead without giving anything back. She held a carved figurine in one hand, a small thing worn smooth at the edges. Something kept, not discarded. I crouched down. I do not know why I did that first, before I said anything. Instinct, maybe. The imagery of someone teaching me once that you do not stand over something small and fragile and expect it to trust you. Shh. I crouched down until I was at her level, and then I just stayed there for a moment and let her look at me. The ridge around us was quiet in a particular way. Not the ordinary quiet of an uninhabited place, the specific quiet left behind when a place that was inhabited has recently become otherwise. You could feel the weight of it. The settlement had been here for 3 generations. I knew that from the survey files. 3 generations of her people had worked this ground, built those walls, had put something of themselves into the soil. The Colonial Agricultural Authority called it undeveloped land. The files I had been handed called it a resettlement zone. The ridge itself did not seem to agree with either description. Shh. I said the only words I had in her language, which were not many. I had learned them from a phrase sheet in the relocation guidance packet, a document not intended for anything like this moment. I said the words for "I mean no harm," and the words for "I will not leave," and I waited to see. She understood. She looked at me for a long time, then she held out the figurine, not offering it exactly, showing it. There is a difference. She was not asking me to take it. She was telling me it existed. She was showing me what she had decided was worth staying behind for, and what she was showing me was this. A carved shape of a person kneeling, no larger than my thumb, worn so smooth by years of handling that the details had softened, but the posture remained. A figure bent towards something, attending to something, present. I looked at it for as long as she had looked at me. The demolition crew was scheduled for mid-morning. I had a comm unit on my belt, and I had the site coordinators channel, and I had a form I could file that would delay equipment deployment pending a secondary welfare assessment. I had never filed one. I did not know anyone in my department who had. I filed one. The response came back in 20 minutes, which was fast, and it was not a response so much as a notification that my professional certification review was now pending. I accepted that. I sent a second notice, a formal one, citing the presence of a dependent minor on the active demolition site, which was the language the authorities' own code required them to take seriously. That one took longer to generate a reply. because no one in the chain of command had expected to need a protocol for it. While I waited, I sat on the rubble beside her, not too close, and ate the ration bar from my kit, and I set another, on the ground between us without comment. She looked at it for a while. Then she picked it up and held it. And after a while she ate it. And that was the most ordinary and the most significant thing that happened on the ridge that morning. The equipment did not come. The welfare notification I had filed triggered an automated review that flagged the site, and the flag held the machinery at the staging area for 48 hours pending documentation. 48 hours was enough. A resettlement coordinator named Vera arrived by midday. She was one of the few in the authorities' service who treated her work as something other than logistics. And she found the child's family group at the secondary processing camp, 8 kilometers down the road, and by late afternoon a woman came up the path toward the ridge with the particular walk of someone who has been searching and has now stopped. I watched the child stand up. She still had the figurine in her hand. She did not run, exactly. She moved in the way of someone who had been very still for a very long time and had finally been given permission to stop. And the woman who came up the path knelt down on the ground and gathered her in. And the sound that came from both of them was not something I can put into useful language, except to say that it was the sound of a space closing should not have been open. I stayed on the ridge until they had gone down the path and out of sight. Then I stood there a while longer. The figurine was still in the child's hand when she left. I noticed that. She had not put it down, had not given it away, had carried it with her all the way down the ridge and back toward the people it belonged to. 3 generations of hands had worn it smooth, and she had added her own mourning to the count, and now she was taking it forward. I filed a full site welfare report when I got back to the depot, 17 pages, documenting everything the survey forms had no fields for. I documented the building that had stood for 3 generations. I documented the composition of the soil, which the authorities' files had described as untreated, and the ridge itself would have described differently. I documented the figurine, its material and dimensions and evident age, its survival through a resettlement, its presence in a child's hand on a cleared site at dawn. I documented what the ridge had been, since no one else in my department was going to. My certification review took 4 months. At the end of it, they gave me a formal reprimand, is what they called an outcome, when they could not find cause to terminate and could not bring themselves to clear you. I kept the reprimand in the same drawer as the copy of the site report. And every few years I take them both out and look at them together. And I think about the child standing up from the rubble and the figurine in her hand and the way she held it out to show me, not offering it, showing it. I understood, eventually, what she had been telling me. She was telling me the figure had always knelt. She was telling me the posture was not a full but a record. Proof that someone, some ancestor 3 generations back, had looked at a small and uncertain thing and decided to be present for it. She was showing me the shape of what was expected. I hope I was equal to it. I think I was, just barely, which is the most any of us can say.